Thank you, President Jason. And I'm honored today to introduce the speaker, Pro Soccer Managing Director Peter Wilt, who is working on launching Madison's first professional soccer team. Wilt has earned 6 championship rings and record business growth for professional soccer teams in 4 different American soccer leagues. And I always thought that the championship rings for football were big and they might be smaller for soccer. And get a chance to look at his championship ring. We're honored that he's only wearing one of them, not all 6. Okay. So he has launched 6 pro soccer teams more than anyone in history and managed 2 others during his 3-decade soccer executive career. Peter is very familiar with Wisconsin sports fans, having worked for the Milwaukee Brewers, the Milwaukee Admirals, and the Milwaukee Wave, which is a total of 4 years in Wisconsin. So the fact that he's a native from Illinois, please disregard that, okay? Peter will discuss the changing landscape of sports demographics, why Madison is poised to embrace the new team, and how Madison Pro Soccer is connecting with civic, social, charitable, cultural, and sports organizations to build a sustainable, and Jesse Lerner, you hear that, sustainable, okay, professional team from the bottom up. We look forward to your presentation, Peter, and we have made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund. As what he said, thanks for speaking to us today. Please help me in welcoming Peter Wilt to the podium.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Jason. Thank you all the Rotarians for having me here today. It's a real honor to be here and to be able to talk about this exciting project. I'm going to talk certainly about soccer, but maybe more importantly, I'm going to talk about the community, the demographics. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into all this marketing speak and everything, but really at the core of any sports fandom, it's tribal, and it's community pride, civic pride, and that I think is the core of what I'm going to be talking about in the next 15 or 20 minutes or so. And then I'll leave some time open at the end for some questions and answers. How many people here have ever heard of soccer? Are you old enough to remember soccer being referred to as the sport of the 70s? Anyone? Yeah? Sport of the 80s. Pele was in the 70s, and then all the youth soccer started in the 80s. The World Cups, plural, came to the U.S. in the 90s, the Men's World Cup in 94 and the Women's in 99, and they thought, that's it. This is going to do it. It's going to put it over the top. And it really didn't become mainstream in the 90s. But what's happened in the last really 5 or 10 years, this country has indeed become a true soccer nation. And part of it is indeed those kids that were playing the sport in the 80s have grown up and become decision makers in their family for spectator sports and participation and decision making on season tickets and media decisions and all that. But really, it's about it becoming ingrained in their way of life. It's now something that's important to the lifestyle of this new generation growing up. And it still isn't for everybody. It's not mainstream, frankly, for, I'm approaching 60 years of age, and my age group happens to mirror the average age of a World Series viewer. And that age has gone up 1 year every year for the last 7 years. With soccer, there's a wave coming up beneath it. Certainly age is part of it. And it's reflected in millennials in particular. That age group of 18 to 37-year-olds not only grew up playing the sport, but now they've been able to watch it, especially European soccer, English league soccer, German, Italian, and Spanish. And now it's part of their lives. I would not have believed this when I started working in professional soccer back in the 80s. But there are 24-hour soccer channels now, and people are watching it in large numbers. It's actually the second most popular sport among ages 12 to 24, and for all ages, it's the 4th most popular sport to watch in this country. Diversity is important for soccer's growth. The growing Latino immigration, the new American population, plays well for soccer because it is the world's game. Our tagline is the world's game and Madison's team. Well, the people that come from around the world to Madison already have a passion for soccer. And then, of course, young families. We've seen that for decades. But just because a family was involved in playing the sport did not necessarily translate into watching the sport. That part is changing. And you see Madison's demographics here are actually very good for soccer demographics. It's a young community, and soccer fans are young in general. Madison is 50% under the age of 30. Madison has a growing number of Latinos, and 40 youth soccer clubs are within the greater South Central Wisconsin area. They're under the umbrella of an organization called MESA, Madison Area Youth Soccer Association, which is one of the largest youth soccer organizations of its kind in the country. It's got good history too, and part of that I think should be credited to UW-Madison and the success that their men's soccer program had in the 90s under Coach Jim Launder when they won the men's NCAA championship in 1995. And the youth participation, of course, is huge. It's over 20,000 players that are registered. That doesn't count the kids that are also playing it on a recreational basis. And it reflects across the country. This is really becoming, maybe 30 years ago, the sport was big in major urban centers, especially out east and in the north. St. Louis has actually had a long history with soccer, Milwaukee as well. But in the last couple of decades, we now have professional soccer in small, medium, and large markets. The Madison Pro Soccer team is going to fit in what's comparable to AA baseball. Okay, so it's professional. This is a full-time job for these guys, but they're trying to use this as a stepping stone to get to a higher level, to Major League Soccer, which is Tier 1 in the United States and Canada. I started the Chicago Fire, and that's part of a league that is really growing. Major League Soccer is now over 20 teams and continuing to grow. The second tier I helped launch, Indy 11, was the most recent team. And going into Indianapolis, no one really thought it was a soccer community. But in our first year, we became the first professional soccer team in America to sell out every home game in our first year. And that was over 11,000 capacity at a college campus at IUPUI. And Madison Pro Soccer, name still to be determined, is going to be in the third tier. So it's called USL D3. There'll be about a dozen teams, not only nationwide, but in Canada. As you can see, Toronto is going to be in the league, as well as Tucson. There'll be some Midwest rivalries. Ultimately, I mean within 2 or 3 years, there'll be 24 teams split into 3 regions, Central, West, and East. And so we'll have some local rivals in the Midwest, which will be exciting because whenever you have rivals and you have visiting fans coming, it's more exciting to have that passion where the fans are going cheering for their own team. And then these are some of the who, what, where, when, why questions answered that most people will have. A lot of the who, and this is the fun stuff about starting it from scratch, is still to be determined. We've crowdsourced the name of the team. So we asked the public for submissions on what the name of the team should be. And we received hundreds and hundreds, actually almost 1,000 suggestions. And then we put it up to the fans in a ballot. We made it World Cup style with 8 groups of 4. And the top vote getters moved on to the quarterfinals, the semifinals. And now the final 2 are, actually were just completed last week. So we're tallying the votes. I may or may not know the actual winner, but we'll announce it in September. We're also getting the logo designed and the scarf, and my good friends at the Isthmus think that it will be Isthmus City FC. Craig, is that a possibility? It would be a real upset considering it's not one of the 2 finalists. But you know people. Other announcements we'll have is the naming of the head coach. We actually interviewed one of the 2 finalists yesterday. I was in town, not only for us to get to know him, but him to get to know Madison. The 2 finalists are from out of the area, and we hope to have that selection done by next month as well. And we'll need to, because that coach will also be the technical director, which is comparable to a general manager in most sports, where they're selecting the players. And the players will be coming from all over the world. We're permitted 7 international players, and then the rest are domestic. We'll certainly have some local players. We're fortunate in Wisconsin. There's some real good young talent, not just coming from UW, but the other colleges throughout the state. And there'll be players from throughout the country. It'll mainly be a young team. This is a developmental team. So in other sports, it's a minor league team. So 21 to 25 years old is what the bulk of the team will be. But there will be some older players, you want some team leaders that can show the younger players the way. Some of these players will be former Major League Soccer players or international players that want to continue their career and are prepared to be a leader in a lower division. And then so this starts up next spring. March is when the league starts. We told the league, which is based in Tampa, Florida, that we think Florida would be a great place for us to start our games in March. And Tucson and Georgia. We're trying to hold off the home opener as late as possible for climate reasons as well as logistic reasons in our first year. But we're probably looking at the second weekend of April for the home opener. Season will continue through September with playoffs, knock on wood, following. And we are investing in this team. You know, we're fortunate to be owned and led by the owners of Big Top, who own the Madison Mallards, as well as other Northwoods Leagues teams throughout the state. And they're committed to making this team a championship caliber team. It's an investment, and Vern Stenman and Connor Kaloya, along with our soccer investor, Jim Kazmarek, are really investing to make this team one that Madison can be proud of. There'll be 28 regular season games, 14 home, 14 away. We'll also add some exhibition games, international exhibitions, as well as others. We're working to bring in a Major League Soccer team for an exhibition. So total, there'll likely be 17 home games. The U.S. Open Cup is a wonderful tournament. It's the oldest competed for trophy in the United States in any sport. I'm probably talking out of my butt right now. I don't think, yeah, that's not true. It's the oldest competed soccer trophy. It's like 1914, so it's old. But what's neat about it, it's a David versus Goliath situation. It's a single knockout tournament where every team in the country is eligible, pro or amateur. So we'll come in around the 3rd round. There'll be amateur teams that play their way up until they match up with us. And then if we're fortunate enough to win those games, we advance and we'll eventually play a Major League Soccer team. And it'd be really neat. The last time a lower division team won the tournament was 1999. So it's unlikely we'll win the whole thing, but it is possible. It's part of the fun of that tournament. Now, the pretty pictures up front you may have seen during the luncheon. These represent the improvements that are being made at Breese Stevens Field. You know, as George mentioned, I've lived in Wisconsin for 40 years, and I've come to Madison quite often, but usually it's driving by on Washington Avenue and seeing this sandstone wall on the right-hand side and thinking, is there a graveyard behind there? And frankly, for over 30 of those years, I think there might have been. What's brilliant is what's happened in the last 4 or 5 years, especially. The improvements that have already been made, and under the Big Top leadership, bringing in so many events, including community events and concerts, and that is now a facility that's being used by the community. These new improvements, thanks to the City of Madison, Alder Zellers, and Big Top, will add amenities, capacity, restrooms, and really make it a more enjoyable place to watch not only a sporting event, but any event that's there. In addition to the new seats on the Brewerly side, you can see there where the supporters are going to be. Those are the passionate fans that will take the scarves and wave them the whole game. They'll stand and they'll cheer, and they might have a beer or two, and they'll really care about whether or not we win or lose. And that's exciting to me. If we don't win, I want them to be mad at me, mad at the organization. This isn't something where they're just going to have a good time. We think they will, but in addition to that, we want the pressure that we're going to perform on the field as well. There'll be suites on the Wash Ave side, touchline seats like an NBA-style court side seats on the Mifflin side, one-row padded seats with waiter, waitress service, all-inclusive food and beverage. And on the Patterson side, here's a closer look at that. You'll see we're building a brick-and-mortar restrooms and points of sale for food and beverage concessions. On top of that is a rooftop deck that will, again, be an all-inclusive food and beverage opportunity, more of a hospitality area, way to watch the game. This is an important slide. I think it's the second to last one I have. Fan engagement. This team is going to make it because we're building it from the bottom up. It's really, truly is going to be Madison's team. The name, colors, and badge, as I said, we use the community to decide what they want it to be. The colors are very likely going to be representative of the city and or state flag. The badge, the crest, is something that the public had input on and will have meaning that will be representative of the community. We did a campaign in July where every day we had a scavenger hunt. On social media, people use clues to find these scarves. We distributed thousands of these scarves around not just Madison and Dane County, but throughout south central Wisconsin as a way to embed the team with the community, but also to kind of educate them. These scavenger hunt locations were oftentimes historic locations or iconic locations in the area that we were able to brag about through social media and hopefully make Madison folks feel proud of where they live and recognize that this team is going to represent them and the community at large. One of the fun promotions we did, and I want to give a shout out to Matt Rank and Ava Jansen from our organization who helped organize this, Julian Holtzman who did the scavenger hunt. The Where in the World is MPS, Madison Pro Soccer campaign. Fans that found these scarves were encouraged to take them on their travels and display pictures on social media. And Matt, where did we have them from? Croatia. Brune, was that you? I think. All right. I will say the last soccer event we did with Madison Pro Soccer at Bree Stevens Field was actually a public showing on our big screen of the Croatian national team soccer team. Brune, we did it for you. It was also the World Cup final, and Croatia did come in second in that particular game. But a great tournament, something to be very proud of. Croatia really upset some great countries along the way to get as far as they did. The grassroots is going to be the key to this. We're working with MESA, the organization I talked about earlier. The supporters groups, critical for creating the environment that we're going to have at the stadium. These are hardcore fans that right now are going to soccer taverns in the morning on weekends. You can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning. Don't judge. It's nighttime somewhere in the world, as George said, and likely where these matches are being shown, or being played. So they're being played in England, Italy, Germany, Spain, and so Madison soccer fans are getting up at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, going to the Nomad or down the street at Cooper's or to Hawks and watching these matches. And they're passionate. There's organized groups for the Liverpool supporters group. Are there any Liverpool supporters in here today? Yeah. Craig and Dan, there you go. I knew I did that for you guys. Top of the table. And in Chelsea and Manchester United and and also some of the more obscure teams as well. And these leaders of these groups have come together to form a Madison Pro Soccer supporters group. We believe that there'll be not just hundreds, but thousands of these fans attending the games, engaged, not because it's the best soccer in the world. It isn't. I mean, we're not kidding anybody. We're still the United States. We're still growing the sport, and we're third division. But this is going to be Madison's team. That pride in Madison, it's going to be tribal, and it will be carried over to the fans by the players on the field and the coaches and the staff, and not just the way they play, but the way they interact in the community. Community engagement is really important, and that's the last point there, the community partnerships. We're going to engage with, George mentioned it, the social, the cultural, charitable, civic, business organizations to give back. I worked for a man in Chicago named Phil Anschutz. He's one of the wealthiest men in the world, actually. And the last question, it wasn't a question, he told me in my job interview. He said, if you get this position, this is with the Chicago Fire, he said, I'm going to have you start a charitable arm to your organization. And at that point, this was 1997, there had been no new franchises in any sport that had created a charitable foundation at the same time they started a sports team. He said, you're going to start a charitable foundation to go along with this team because you're going to be asking a lot from the community. It's important that you give back to the community. And we have the same philosophy here with Madison Pro Soccer. So finally, we want you all to join with us and make this Madison's team and be part of it. You know, some of the great ways from a business standpoint, if you can afford it and you're so inclined, is through season tickets or corporate partnerships. Season tickets are affordable. This is affordable family entertainment. The deposits are $50. The tickets, season tickets, $274, give or take, to start on the low end. There's better seats at higher prices if you want to give us more money. God bless you. But it's priced so the barrier to entry is about the price of a movie ticket, or a little bit more than the price of a movie ticket. We think live professional sports should be in that area. We don't want people not going to the games because of the price of the ticket. We want to earn fans in the community's support. And to me, it's the hard part, in my experience, or the challenging part, is to prove that you're not only worthy of their money, but worthy of their time. And the nice thing about soccer is it's 2 hours. You know going in. The game starts at 7:36. In actuality, we'll say 7:30, but it'll kick off at 7:36, and by 9:30, the game is over. Television loves it for the same reason, by the way. And if you'd like to talk to us about corporate partnerships, and we think it's a great way to reach, I'll say, unique audiences that maybe other properties can't reach, in particular the young adults, new Americans, and soccer families. But if that's not appropriate for you or in the budget, happy to talk to you about promotional partnerships where we can do cross promotions. We can help shout from the rooftops, our own rooftops. And in the neighborhood, you know, Tenny Lapham, there's rooftops now that will be able to watch our games. Yeah, you know, Vern and Connor are scheming for a way to charge them for their view. I think they're maybe like Wrigleyville, or put up a big wall. And you know, actually up on one of the rooftops recently, and it is a beautiful view. And now across on Washington Ave, where the new Indigo Hotel is going, we'll have nice views of the stadium as well. But that whole neighborhood, we're proud that we've helped revitalize it, and we hope you can follow us there. Social media is an easy way if you're so inclined to check us out on Facebook or social or Twitter. Our website, MadisonProSoccer.com. Our newsletter, we're trying to get our database up, so by all means, if you want one more piece of, it's not junk mail, it's informative, it's entertaining. Sign up for that and you'll get more information. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. It sounds really exciting, but I have a couple questions. One, how will you recruit the players? Will you be depending on local host families for housing them, and will they be paid at all?
Good questions. And on your way out, be sure to grab a ticket order form. They're rushing for those ticket order forms. My business card is also there, so be sure to check it out. There will not be host families. With the baseball, we do host families. These tend to be older players in their 20s, so they kind of want to live on their own. We'll be finding housing for them. As far as are they being paid, did you mean the host families? There won't be any. The players, yes, players will be paid, full-time professionals. Some of them may augment their compensation by working in our soccer camps. We'll also be doing soccer camps throughout the area as well. The players will be recruited from throughout the world. A lot of them, frankly, come to us through player agents. I've got an extensive network of agents that have already been filling my inbox with the greatest player ever from Sudan. And and Brun, if you have a greatest player from Croatia, now we're talking. There'll be a lot of scouting. The state schools, frankly, UW every year sends at least one good player into the Major League Soccer draft. So there'll be good players coming locally as well as internationally.
Well, I think it's great that the connection with the Latino community that's built right in. Another opportunity, there's lots of us in Battle Creek, in Madison, are African American. Soccer is hot in Africa. What's been your experience in reaching out to African Americans and communities that you serve, and how might you do that in Madison?
Yes, we're already starting on that. Everyone on your table, you have at least one scarf, and on the scarf it has a tag talking about the Scarf Madison campaign. It's benefiting a local nonprofit soccer organization called Millennium Soccer Club that brings youth soccer into lower income areas, including African American communities and Latino communities. So we're already raising money for that. We'll be looking to raise money to build futsal courts, which are small-sided soccer fields on pavement. It's five-a-side game, which are easier to do in cities where land is at a premium. And we're going to get the players out in the community. One of the benefits, I talked to Vern and Connor about this, one of the challenges they have with getting their baseball players out in schools and such is that their season for the Mallards is 76 days, if I'm not mistaken, and they have 72 games. And they generally, the manager doesn't like, understandably, doing appearances on game days. So they don't have a lot of opportunities. They do a lot given the parameters. We're going to have players that live in Madison year-round, and then during the 9-month season, when they're here for preseason and such, they'll have 1 to 2 games a week. Those other dates, they'll be in schools, parks, wherever we're wanted, and making appearances and bringing the sport to the kids directly.
Hey, Peter. Thank you very much. This is really exciting. Quick question for you. So we're starting out as a D3 team. Is it possible to get to be a Tier 1 team, or do you anticipate that we might?
There's something called promotion and relegation, which is a great concept, and it's in practice in virtually every country in the world but the United States. And what promotion and relegation is when you finish in first place in a lower division one year, the next year you get to play in the higher division. So you can start in the 5th division and work your way up to the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd, and the 1st, and it's relatively common that it does up to a point. The downside, of course, is that the team that finishes in last place in the higher division gets relegated to the lower division. If and when that system is implemented in the United States, then that opportunity comes to be promoted to the 2nd division by winning on merit, and then to the 1st division. The league, we're in the USL. I met with their chairman when he was in Madison for our announcement in May, And I have been a staunch supporter of that system in the United States. So he asked to meet with me to discuss that subject. And he surprised me by saying that he does advocate for that. I think it's a longer term, meaning at least 5, probably 10 years out. But we hope that that will be in our future. So thank you very much. If I can indulge everybody that has a scarf on their table, Carl, can you do a picture? Do you know where anyone with a camera? If everyone could hold up their Madison Pro Soccer scarf for a photo op, that would be just awesome. Huh? Ole, ole, ole. Ole, 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 ole. Ole, ole. Madison! Woo! Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. We are adjourned.